Hey there, night owls and history enthusiasts. Tonight we're diving into something that's been annoying roommates and spouses since humans first figured out how to make sounds with their mouths. We're talking about sleep talking, that wonderful phenomenon where your brain decides to give a 3 a.m. lecture about purple elephants or grocery lists while you're completely unconscious. So before we slip into this nocturnal journey together, go ahead and hit that like button if you're ready to explore why humans have been mumbling nonsense in their sleep since cave-dwelling days. And subscribe if you want more late night deep dives into the weird corners of human behavior. Drop a comment and let me know, are you a sleep talker yourself? Or are you the unfortunate soul who has to listen to someone else's unconscious monologues? Now grab your favorite blanket, maybe put on some soft background noise, and let's explore the absolutely ridiculous and surprisingly fascinating history of sleep talking. From ancient Romans thinking it was divine messages to modern scientists hooking people up to machines, just to figure out why we won't shut up even when we're asleep. You think you understand your sleeping brain? That's precious, like thinking you can reason with a cat at 2 a.m. Before you could even dream of understanding why your roommate mumbles about cheese at 3 in the morning. You had to understand that humans have been talking in their sleep since they first figured out how to talk while awake. And let me tell you, our ancestors were no quieter in their slumber than we are today. In fact, they were probably worse, because they hadn't invented noise, cancelling headphones yet, and their idea of a good night's sleep involved lying on rocks and hoping the local wildlife didn't mistake them for a midnight snack. Picture this. The first cave dweller, let's call him Grok, finally masters the art of verbal communication during daylight hours. He's mastered fire good, mammoth bad, and the ever-popular May hungry. But Grok's brain, that magnificent 3-pound lump of prehistoric potential, doesn't shut off when he closes his eyes. No, it keeps chugging along like a broken record player, spitting out random combinations of his daily vocabulary. His cave mates wake up to Grok muttering about fire, mammoths and hungry rocks, and they think he's either possessed by spirits or has eaten too many fermented berries again. The truth is, Grok's brain is doing what brains do best during sleep, filing away memories, processing emotions, and occasionally playing mad libs with the day's experiences. His sleep talking isn't magic or madness. It's just his neural networks having a late-night conversation with themselves, like a drunk person arguing with their reflection in a bathroom mirror. Fast forward a few thousand years, and the ancient Egyptians have turned sleep talking into an art form. These were the people who built pyramids and mummified cats, so naturally, they had opinions about nocturnal chatter. They believed that sleep talking was a form of communication with the gods, which sounds impressive until you realize that meant every time someone mumbled, "Where are my sandals?" in their sleep, it was considered divine revelation. The Egyptian dream interpreters, who were basically the ancient equivalent of late-night radio psychics, would sit by sleeping pharaohs with papyrus and stylus, frantically scribbling down every mef and grumble, in case it contained important information about crop yields or impending invasions. The Egyptians were so convinced that sleep speech was spiritually significant that they developed elaborate rituals around it. If a priest started reciting recipes for bread in his sleep, it might be interpreted as a message from the grain goddess. If a scribe muttered about ink shortages, it could signal economic trouble ahead. The whole system was about as reliable as using a magic 8-ball to predict the weather, but it kept the dream interpreters employed and gave everyone something to talk about during the day. Meanwhile, the ancient Greeks were taking a slightly more scientific approach. Though scientific, in ancient Greece often meant, let's make up a really elaborate explanation and see if anyone believes it. The Greeks decided that sleep talking was caused by an imbalance of the 4 humus: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Too much blood, and you'd speak passionately about war and love. Too much phlegm, and you'd mumble wetly about, well, wet things. Yellow bile made you angry, talk in your sleep, probably complaining about the service at the local taverna, or the quality of olive oil these days. And black bile, that made you melancholy sleep talk, presumably about the fleeting nature of existence and why nobody understood your poetry. Greek physicians, who were basically philosophers, with medical degrees they'd awarded themselves, would prescribe various treatments for excessive sleep talking. These ranged from drinking specific herbal concoctions that probably tasted like boiled socks, to sleeping in certain positions that guaranteed you'd wake up with a crick in your neck. The wealthy could afford to have servants monitor their sleep speech and report back in the morning, which must have been the ancient world's most boring job. Sir, last night you said purple elephants 14 times and asked for more wine twice. Also, you seem to have strong feelings about your toga tailor. The Romans, never content to let the Greeks have all the fun, decided that sleep talking was obviously a sign of either divine favor or impending doom, depending on what you said and who you were. Roman soldiers were particularly notorious sleep talkers, probably because they spent their days being yelled at by centurions and their nights dreaming about not being yelled at by centurions. The barracks must have sounded like a very confused midnight poetry reading, with men unconsciously reciting military commands, complaining about their equipment, or declaring their love for various tavern wenches back home. Roman military physicians, who had about as much medical training as a modern food blogger has culinary education, developed theories about sleep talking being related to battle stress. They weren't entirely wrong, though their treatments were questionable at best. Soldiers who talked too much in their sleep might be prescribed cold baths, extra marching, or a diet consisting entirely of bread and vinegar. The logic was that if you exhausted the body enough, the mind would be too tired to chatter during sleep. It's the ancient equivalent of suggesting that insomniacs try running a marathon right before bedtime. But it wasn't just the common soldiers who were nocturnal chatterboxes. Roman emperors were notorious for their sleep speech, and their bedside scribes recorded everything for posterity. Emperor Caligula apparently once spent an entire night having an animated conversation with the moon, which his courtiers interpreted as evidence of his divine nature rather than, say, evidence that absolute power might be affecting his mental health. Emperor Nero was said to sleep sing, which sounds charming until you remember that Nero's singing was so bad that people would rather face wild beasts in the arena than sit through one of his concerts. The documentation of imperial sleep talking became a cottage industry in Rome. Professional sleep listeners, who were probably the ancient world's most patient people, would spend their nights transcribing the mumbled words of the powerful. These transcripts were then analyzed by teams of advisors, priests, and sycophants, all trying to extract meaning from phrases like, more grapes, or, where did I put my good toga? The fact that most sleep talking is completely random gibberish didn't deter anyone from finding profound significance in every utterance. As the Roman Empire crumbled, which took several centuries and involved a lot of arguing, sleep talking continued to fascinate and perplex people. The early Christians had to figure out how to incorporate nocturnal chatter into their theology, which led to some interesting theological debates. If someone sleep talked in tongues, was it a gift from the Holy Spirit or just indigestion? If a monk muttered prayers in his sleep, did those count toward his daily devotional requirements? The Church Fathers spent an impressive amount of time debating these questions, possibly because they didn't have Netflix to distract them. Medieval Europe embraced sleep talking with the same enthusiasm they brought to bloodletting and believing that bathing was dangerous to your health. Medieval physicians, who were approximately as scientifically rigorous as a horoscope writer, developed elaborate theories about sleep speech being caused by night vapors that rose from the earth and entered through the ears. These vapors, they claimed, mixed with the brain's natural humors and caused unconscious speech. The cure was typically some combination of prayer, herbal remedies that probably contained more alcohol than medicine, and sleeping with various protective amulets that did absolutely nothing except make it harder to get comfortable. The Catholic Church had mixed feelings about sleep talking during the Middle Ages. On one hand, it could be a sign of divine inspiration, like when saints reportedly preached entire sermons in their sleep. On the other hand, it could be evidence of demonic possession, especially if the sleep talker said anything remotely interesting or controversial. The line between divine inspiration and demonic influence was apparently very thin and mostly determined by whether the church hierarchy liked what you were saying. Medieval monasteries became accidental laboratories for sleep-talking research, though they didn't realize it at the time. Monks sleeping in communal dormitories provided a perfect environment for observing nocturnal speech patterns. The more diligent monasteries kept detailed records of who said what during the night, partly for spiritual reasons and partly because Brother Thomas's sleep, shouting about beer, was disrupting everyone else's rest. These monastic records, preserved in monastery libraries across Europe, represent some of the earliest systematic documentation of sleep-talking patterns. The phenomenon wasn't limited to religious communities. Medieval nobility were also enthusiastic sleep talkers, though their nocturnal utterances were typically recorded by servants who were too afraid of losing their jobs to report anything too scandalous. Royal sleep speech became a source of court gossip and political intrigue. If the king muttered about taxes in his sleep, it might influence policy decisions. If a queen's sleep talked about other men, it could spark rumors of adultery and potentially lead to wars, because medieval politics were essentially high school drama with bigger armies. Medieval medical texts devoted entire chapters to sleep talking, complete with elaborate diagrams of the brain that bore about as much resemblance to actual anatomy as a child's drawing bears to the Mona Lisa. These texts confidently explained that sleep talking was caused by excessive heat in the brain, wandering spirits, or the influence of planetary alignments. The treatments were equally scientific, involving bloodletting, herbal poultices applied to the forehead, and sleeping with one's head pointed toward various cardinal directions depending on the phase of the moon. The Renaissance brought a slight improvement in understanding, though slight is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Renaissance scholars, who were rediscovering ancient Greek and Roman texts with the enthusiasm of teenagers discovering their parents' old music collection, began to develop more sophisticated theories about sleep and dreams. However, they still thought that sleep talking was caused by an imbalance of bodily humors, which shows that even Renaissance thinking had its limitations. Leonardo da Vinci, who apparently had opinions about everything, wrote extensively about sleep and dreams in his notebooks. His observations about sleep talking were remarkably insightful for the time, noting that people seemed to act out their daily concerns and experiences during sleep. He theorized that the mind continued to process information during sleep, which wasn't far from our modern understanding. However, he also believed that the soul partially left the body during sleep, of which explains why his insights were mixed with a healthy dose of Renaissance mysticism. Renaissance physicians began to take a more systematic approach to sleep disorders, including excessive sleep talking. They developed detailed categorization systems, classifying different types of nocturnal speech based on volume, coherence, and content. Loud, incoherent rambling was considered a sign of hot humors, while quiet, coherent sleep speech indicated cold humors. The treatments remained largely useless, involving various combinations of diet changes, herbal remedies, and lifestyle modifications that probably did more harm than good. The printing press revolutionized the documentation of sleep talking, allowing medical texts and personal accounts to be widely distributed. This led to an explosion of published case studies, personal anecdotes, and medical theories about nocturnal speech. Some of these accounts were genuine attempts at scientific observation, while others were clearly sensationalized stories designed to sell books. The line between scientific documentation and entertainment wasn't always clear, much like modern reality television. The Enlightenment brought rationality and scientific method to the study of sleep talking, though it took a while for old superstitions to die. Enlightenment philosophers and early scientists began to approach sleep phenomena with systematic observation and logical reasoning. They started to understand that sleep talking was a natural phenomenon rather than a supernatural one, though they still didn't fully understand the mechanisms involved. The famous philosopher René Descartes had his own theories about sleep and dreams, including sleep talking. He believed that during sleep, the soul's connection to the body was weakened, allowing for unusual mental phenomena. While this sounds mystical today, it was actually a step toward understanding that sleep involves altered states of consciousness. Descartes also noted that sleep talkers often seemed to be responding to dream scenarios, which was a crucial insight into the relationship between dreams and sleep behavior. The scientific revolution of the 17th and 18th centuries brought more rigorous observation methods to the study of sleep talking. Scientists began conducting controlled observations, keeping detailed records, and attempting to identify patterns. They noticed that sleep talking was more common during certain sleep stages, though they didn't yet understand sleep architecture the way we do today. They also observed that emotional stress and physical illness seemed to increase the frequency of sleep talking, which was an important step toward understanding the psychological and physiological factors involved. The Industrial Revolution changed everything about human sleep patterns, including sleep talking. Factory workers, who were working longer hours in more stressful conditions than ever before, became a new population for sleep researchers to study. Factory dormitories and boarding houses provided environments where sleep talking could be easily observed and documented. Industrial physicians began to notice correlations between work stress, living conditions, and sleep disturbances, including nocturnal speech. The 19th century saw the rise of systematic medical classification systems, and sleep talking finally got its official medical terminology. Physicians began using terms like somniloquy to describe sleep talking, which sounds much more impressive than talking in your sleep, and probably allowed them to charge higher consultation fees. Medical schools began teaching about sleep disorders as legitimate medical conditions rather than supernatural phenomena, though the treatments remained largely ineffective. Victorian society had a complicated relationship with sleep talking. On one hand, it was seen as a medical condition that required treatment. On the other hand, it was often viewed as a character flaw or moral failing, especially in women. Victorian medical texts are full of case studies describing how sleep talking was linked to hysteria, moral weakness, and insufficient religious devotion. The recommended treatments typically involved strict moral discipline, regular prayer, and avoiding exciting literature, which probably explains why Victorian novels were so popular despite being banned from many bedside tables. The Victorian fascination with spiritualism gave sleep talking a new supernatural dimension. Mediums claimed that their nocturnal utterances were communications from the spirit world, and some people genuinely believed that sleep talkers were channeling messages from deceased relatives. This led to a cottage industry of sleep mediums, who would allow people to listen to their sleep talking for a fee, supposedly providing spiritual guidance from beyond the grave. The fact that most sleep talking consists of random fragments like Purple Monkey Tuesday didn't seem to deter anyone from finding deep spiritual meaning in these nocturnal mumblings. Meanwhile, actual medical research was slowly advancing. Physicians began to notice that sleep talking often occurred during specific parts of the night, suggesting that it was related to sleep cycles. They also observed that sleep talkers were usually difficult to wake during their episodes, indicating that sleep talking occurred during deep sleep stages. These observations laid the groundwork for modern understanding of sleep architecture and the relationship between sleep stages and various sleep behaviors. The late 19th century brought the first systematic studies of sleep talking in hospital and asylum settings. Physicians had access to large populations of patients whose sleep could be observed and documented over extended periods. These studies revealed that sleep talking was far more common than previously thought, and that it occurred across all social classes, ages, and backgrounds. The data also showed that sleep talking was generally harmless, which helped reduce some of the stigma associated with the condition. The early 20th century marked the beginning of modern sleep research, though it was still in its infancy. The discovery of brain waves and the development of the electroencephalogram, a EEG, in the 1920s provided the first objective tools for studying sleep. Early EEG studies of sleep talkers showed that their brain activity during sleep talking episodes was different from normal sleep patterns, providing the first scientific evidence that sleep talking involved specific neurological processes. Sigmund Freud's theories about dreams and the unconscious mind gave sleep talking a new psychological dimension. Freudian analysts believed that sleep talking revealed repressed desires and unconscious conflicts, leading to a new industry of dream and sleep speech interpretation. Patients would be encouraged to record their sleep talking and bring the transcripts to therapy sessions for analysis. The fact that most sleep talking is neurological static rather than meaningful communication didn't stop enthusiastic analysts from finding profound psychological significance in every mumbled word. The psychoanalytic approach to sleep talking led to some interesting case studies and therapeutic approaches, though their effectiveness was questionable. Therapists would spend hours analyzing patients' sleep speech, looking for hidden meanings and repressed memories. Some patients reported breakthroughs after analyzing their nocturnal utterances, though this was probably more due to the general effects of therapy and attention rather than any specific insights gained from sleep talking analysis. World War I provided an unfortunate natural experiment in stress-related sleep disturbances, including sleep talking. Military physicians documented widespread sleep problems among soldiers, including increased rates of sleep talking, nightmares, and other sleep disorders. The connection between trauma, stress, and sleep disturbances became clear, laying the groundwork for modern understanding of post-traumatic stress disorder and its effects on sleep. The interwar period saw continued advances in sleep research, with scientists beginning to understand that sleep was not simply the absence of wakefulness, but an active neurological process. Early sleep laboratories were established, allowing researchers to study sleep behaviors, including sleep talking in controlled environments. These labs used primitive recording equipment by today's standards, but they represented a major advance in the systematic study of sleep phenomena. The 1950s brought a revolutionary discovery that changed everything we knew about sleep: the identification of REMs, rapid eye movement sleep, by Eugene Aserinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman. This discovery revealed that sleep consisted of different stages with distinct neurological characteristics, and it provided the framework for understanding when and why sleep talking occurred. Early studies showed that sleep talking could occur during any stage of sleep, but the characteristics of the speech varied depending on the sleep stage. The discovery of sleep stages led to a new understanding of sleep talking patterns. Researchers found that sleep talking during REM sleep tended to be more complex and coherent, often related to dream content. Sleep talking during non-REM sleep was typically simpler and less coherent, consisting of single words or short phrases. This discovery helped explain why some sleep talking seemed meaningful, while other episodes were just random gibberish. The 1960s and 1970s saw the establishment of dedicated sleep research centers and the development of standardized methods for studying sleep disorders. Sleep talking was finally recognized as a legitimate area of scientific inquiry, rather than just a curiosity or supernatural phenomenon. Researchers began conducting systematic studies of sleep talking frequency, content, and associated factors. Large-scale epidemiological studies revealed that sleep talking was far more common than previously thought. Surveys suggested that up to 50% of children and 5% of adults talked in their sleep at least occasionally. These studies also showed that sleep talking often ran in families, suggesting a genetic component. The research helped normalize sleep talking and reduce the stigma that had been associated with it for centuries. The development of sophisticated recording equipment allowed researchers to study sleep talking in unprecedented detail. Multi-channel EEG machines, video recording, and audio analysis software provided new tools for understanding the neurological and behavioral aspects of sleep talking. Researchers could now correlate specific brainwave patterns with sleep talking episodes, providing insights into the underlying neural mechanisms. Sleep laboratories became more common in major medical centers during the 1970s and 1980s, and sleep-talking patients were often referred for evaluation. These clinical studies revealed that while sleep-talking was usually benign, it could sometimes be associated with other sleep disorders, such as sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, or parasomnias. The medical community began to take sleep-talking more seriously as a potential indicator of underlying sleep health issues. The 1980s brought advances in neuroscience that further illuminated the mechanisms of sleep talking. Brain imaging technologies like CT scans and early MRI allowed researchers to study the brain structure and activity of sleep talkers. These studies suggested that sleep talking might be related to differences in brain connectivity or activity patterns during sleep, though the specific mechanisms remained unclear. The development of home sleep monitoring devices made it possible to study sleep talking in natural environments, rather than just in laboratory settings. Patients could record their sleep talking at home over extended periods, providing more realistic data about the frequency and patterns of nocturnal speech. These home studies revealed that laboratory environments sometimes suppressed sleep talking, making it seem less common than it actually was. The 1990s saw the integration of sleep medicine into mainstream medical practice. Sleep talking was included in the International Classification of Sleep Disorders, giving it official recognition as a medical phenomenon. This classification helped standardize diagnosis and treatment approaches, though treatment options remained limited since sleep talking was generally considered harmless. The advent of digital recording technology revolutionized the documentation and analysis of sleep talking. Researchers could now store and analyze thousands of hours of sleep recordings, using computer software to identify patterns and classify different types of sleep talking. Natural language processing algorithms were applied to sleep talking transcripts, revealing interesting patterns in word usage, grammar, and content. The internet age brought sleep talking into popular culture in new ways. Online forums and social media groups allowed people to share their sleep talking experiences and recordings. YouTube videos of people talking in their sleep became viral sensations, and smartphone apps were developed to record and analyze sleep talking. This democratization of sleep talking documentation provided researchers with vast amounts of data about real-world sleep talking patterns. Modern neuroscience has provided unprecedented insights into the brain mechanisms underlying sleep talking. Advanced brain imaging techniques like functional MRI and PET scans have revealed that sleep talking involves complex interactions between multiple brain regions. The motor cortex, which controls speech production, shows increased activity during sleep talking episodes, while areas responsible for conscious awareness remain largely inactive. Contemporary research has identified several factors that increase the likelihood of sleep talking. Stress, sleep deprivation, fever, alcohol consumption, and certain medications all seem to make sleep talking more common. Genetic studies have confirmed that sleep talking tends to run in families, suggesting inherited factors that affect sleep architecture or brain connectivity patterns. The relationship between sleep talking and other sleep disorders has become clearer through modern research. Sleep talking is often associated with sleepwalking, night terrors, and other parasomnias, suggesting common underlying mechanisms. People with sleep apnea or other breathing disorders during sleep also show higher rates of sleep talking, possibly due to the frequent sleep disruptions caused by breathing problems. Modern treatment approaches to problematic sleep talking focus on addressing underlying factors rather than the sleep talking itself. Sleep hygiene education, stress management, and treatment of associated sleep disorders are the primary interventions. In rare cases where sleep talking is extremely disruptive, medications that suppress REM sleep or reduce sleep arousal may be prescribed, though these are typically reserved for severe cases. The field of sleep talking research continues to evolve with advancing technology. Researchers are now using artificial intelligence and machine learning to analyze sleep talking patterns and predict when episodes are likely to occur. Some studies are exploring whether sleep talking content can provide insights into memory consolidation, emotional processing, or even early signs of neurological diseases. Recent studies have suggested that sleep talking might play a role in memory consolidation and emotional processing during sleep. The content of sleep talking often relates to recent experiences or emotional concerns, suggesting that it might be a byproduct of the brain's nighttime housekeeping activities. This has led to increased interest in sleep talking as a window into the sleeping mind's activities. The COVID-19 pandemic provided an unexpected opportunity to study stress-related changes in sleep talking patterns. Many people reported increased sleep talking during lockdowns and periods of high stress, confirming the relationship between psychological stress and nocturnal speech. Sleep researchers documented these changes, adding to our understanding of how external stressors affect sleep behavior. Cultural attitudes towards sleep talking have evolved dramatically over the centuries. What was once considered evidence of supernatural activity or mental illness is now understood as a common, generally harmless sleep behavior. This change in perspective reflects broader advances in scientific understanding and the reduction of stigma around sleep disorders in general. The study of sleep talking has also contributed to our understanding of consciousness and the sleeping mind. The fact that people can produce coherent speech while apparently unconscious raises fascinating questions about the nature of consciousness and awareness during sleep. Some researchers argue that sleep talking provides evidence for different levels of consciousness during sleep, challenging simple binary notions of awake versus asleep. Modern sleep talking research has practical applications beyond just understanding the phenomenon itself. Sleep talking patterns are being studied as potential early indicators of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease. Changes in sleep talking frequency, content, or timing might provide clues about brain changes that occur before other symptoms become apparent. The technology for studying sleep talking continues to advance rapidly. Wearable devices can now monitor sleep stages and detect sleep talking episodes, providing continuous monitoring without the need for laboratory studies. Advanced audio processing algorithms can analyze speech patterns, emotional content, and linguistic complexity in real time, opening new avenues for research. Current research is exploring the relationship between sleep talking and creativity. Some studies suggest that people who talk in their sleep might be more creative or have more vivid dream lives. The content of sleep talking is being analyzed for evidence of creative problem solving or novel idea generation during sleep, though the results are still preliminary. The international nature of modern research has revealed interesting cultural and linguistic patterns in sleep talking. People tend to talk in their native language, even if they are fluent in other languages during waking hours. Multilingual individuals sometimes mix languages in their sleep talking, providing insights into how the brain processes and stores linguistic information. Sleep talking research has also contributed to our understanding of child development. Children are much more likely to talk in their sleep than adults, and the content often reflects their developmental stage and daily experiences. Studying children's sleep talking has provided insights into language development, memory consolidation, and the relationship between waking experiences and sleep processing. The future of sleep talking research looks increasingly sophisticated, with new technologies providing unprecedented insights into this ancient phenomenon. Virtual reality environments are being used to create controlled dream scenarios while monitoring sleep talking responses. Brain stimulation techniques are being explored as ways to influence sleep talking content or frequency, potentially providing new tools for studying consciousness and memory during sleep. Personalized medicine approaches are being applied to sleep talking, with researchers working to identify individual factors that predict who is likely to be a frequent sleep talker. Genetic testing, brain imaging, and sleep architecture analysis are being combined to create individual risk profiles and treatment recommendations for people whose sleep talking is problematic. The integration of artificial intelligence into sleep research is opening new possibilities for understanding sleep talking patterns. Machine learning algorithms can identify subtle patterns in sleep talking content that might not be apparent to human researchers. These AI systems can process vast amounts of sleep talking data, potentially revealing new insights into the relationship between sleep talking and various psychological, neurological, and medical conditions. Looking toward the future, sleep talking research is likely to become increasingly interdisciplinary, incorporating insights from neuroscience, psychology, linguistics, computer science, and medicine. The phenomenon that once puzzled our cave-dwelling ancestors continues to provide new insights into the mysteries of the sleeping mind, proving that some aspects of human experience remain fascinatingly complex despite centuries of study. The story of sleep talking research reflects the broader evolution of scientific understanding, from supernatural explanations to sophisticated neurological models. It demonstrates how persistent human curiosity, combined with advancing technology and rigorous scientific method, can gradually illuminate even the most mysterious aspects of human behavior. The mumbled words that disturbed ancient cave dwellers continue to reveal secrets about consciousness, memory, and the remarkable complexity of the human brain. The commercialization of sleep talking has reached new heights in the 21st century. Sleep apps promise to record and analyze your nocturnal utterances, providing insights into your subconscious mind that are about as scientifically valid as a fortune cookie. These apps have created a new form of digital entertainment, with people sharing their funniest sleep-talking recordings on social media platforms. The phenomenon has spawned entire YouTube channels dedicated to sleep-talking compilation videos, proving that humans will find entertainment value in literally anything, including unconscious gibberish. Modern sleep influencers, because apparently that's a thing now, promote various products and techniques claiming to either enhance or eliminate sleep talking. Special pillows, aromatherapy blends, and even meditation apps specifically target sleep talkers, creating a niche market that our ancestors could never have imagined. The fact that most of these products have no scientific basis for their claims doesn't seem to dampen consumer enthusiasm, proving that the human capacity for hope exceeds our capacity for critical thinking. The legal implications of sleep talking have become increasingly complex in our digital age. Court cases have emerged involving sleep talking recordings used as evidence, raising questions about consent, privacy, and the admissibility of unconscious statements. Legal scholars debate whether sleep talking can constitute a confession, a threat, or evidence of intent, creating new frontiers in both sleep research and jurisprudence. The law, always slow to adapt to technological change, struggles to keep pace with the implications of our ability to record and analyze nocturnal speech. Sleep talking has found its way into modern art and literature, inspiring everything from experimental theater performances based on recorded sleep speech to novels that incorporate sleep talking as a plot device. Contemporary artists have created installations featuring amplified sleep talking, turning bedrooms into performance spaces and challenging audiences to confront the vulnerability of sleep. These artistic interpretations of sleep talking reflect our ongoing fascination with the boundary between conscious and unconscious expression. The environmental factors affecting modern sleep-talking patterns have become a new area of research interest. Urban noise pollution, artificial lighting, electromagnetic fields from electronic devices, and air quality all potentially influence sleep architecture and, by extension, sleep-talking frequency and content. Researchers are discovering that our increasingly artificial environments may be changing fundamental aspects of human sleep behavior that remained relatively stable for thousands of years. Climate change is even affecting sleep-talking research, as rising temperatures and changing weather patterns disrupt sleep quality globally. Heat waves correlate with increased sleep disturbances, including more frequent sleep-talking episodes. Researchers are documenting these climate-related changes in sleep behavior, adding sleep talking to the growing list of human activities affected by environmental change. Future generations may look back at our era's sleep-talking patterns as evidence of a planet in transition. The globalization of sleep-talking research has revealed fascinating cultural variations that were previously unknown. Collaborative international studies have shown that sleep-talking content varies significantly between cultures, reflecting different social norms, languages, and daily stressors. Japanese sleep talkers, for instance, show different patterns from American or European subjects, suggesting that cultural factors influence even our unconscious sleep behaviors. The democratization of sleep research through consumer technology has created vast databases of sleep-talking recordings from around the world. Researchers now have access to millions of hours of naturalistic sleep-talking data, far exceeding what was possible in traditional laboratory settings. This big data approach to sleep-talking research is revealing patterns and correlations that would have been impossible to detect with smaller, controlled studies. Privacy concerns around sleep-talking data have become increasingly important as technology companies collect and analyze sleep information. The intimate nature of sleep-talking recordings raises questions about data ownership, storage, and potential misuse. Regulatory frameworks struggle to keep pace with the implications of collecting and analyzing unconscious human speech, creating new challenges for both researchers and technology companies. The therapeutic applications of sleep talking are being explored in innovative ways. Some therapists are experimenting with sleep talking analysis as a supplement to traditional therapy, looking for insights into patients' unconscious concerns and emotional states. While the scientific validity of these approaches remains questionable, they represent the ongoing human desire to find meaning and healing in every aspect of our experience, including our unconscious utterances. Sleep talking in the elderly has become an area of particular research interest as populations age globally. Changes in sleep talking patterns may serve as early indicators of cognitive decline or neurological disease. Geriatric sleep specialists are developing protocols for monitoring and interpreting sleep talking in older adults, potentially creating new tools for early detection of dementia and other age-related conditions. The relationship between medications and sleep talking is becoming better understood as pharmaceutical research advances. Many common medications, from antidepressants to blood pressure drugs, can affect sleep architecture and potentially influence sleep talking frequency. Medical professionals are beginning to consider sleep talking as a potential side effect to monitor, adding it to the complex calculation of medication benefits and risks. Educational applications of sleep talking research are emerging in unexpected ways. Language learning programs are exploring whether sleep talking patterns can provide insights into second language acquisition and retention. Some researchers theorize that analyzing sleep talking content might reveal which linguistic structures are being consolidated during sleep, potentially informing more effective language teaching methods. The intersection of sleep talking and memory research continues to yield fascinating insights. Studies suggest that people are more likely to talk in their sleep about emotionally significant events or recently learned information. This has led to research into whether sleep talking content can be used to identify which memories are being actively processed and consolidated during sleep, potentially providing new tools for understanding memory formation. Sports science has discovered connections between athletic performance and sleep talking patterns. High-performance athletes show different sleep talking characteristics during training periods versus rest periods, suggesting that physical stress and training demands influence nocturnal speech patterns. Sports psychologists are beginning to incorporate sleep talking monitoring into comprehensive athlete assessment programs. The military applications of sleep talking research have taken on new dimensions in modern warfare. Understanding how combat stress affects sleep patterns, including sleep talking, has become important for maintaining troop readiness and mental health. Military sleep researchers study how deployment conditions, shift work, and combat exposure influence nocturnal speech patterns, contributing to broader understanding of military stress and resilience. Artificial intelligence is revolutionizing the analysis of sleep talking content in ways that would have seemed like science fiction just decades ago. Natural language processing algorithms can now identify emotional content, stress levels, and even potential psychological concerns from sleep talking recordings. These AI systems can process vast amounts of data far more quickly than human researchers, potentially identifying patterns and insights that might otherwise be missed. The philosophical implications of sleep talking continue to challenge our understanding of consciousness and identity. If we're not consciously aware during sleep talking episodes, who or what is doing the talking? These questions touch on fundamental issues of personal identity, free will, and the nature of consciousness that have puzzled philosophers for centuries. Sleep talking provides a unique window into these deep questions about human nature and experience. Virtual reality technology is being integrated into sleep talking research in innovative ways. Researchers can now create controlled virtual environments and monitor how they influence dream content and sleep talking patterns. This technology allows for unprecedented experimental control over the factors that might influence nocturnal speech, opening new avenues for understanding the relationship between waking experiences and sleep behavior. The economic impact of sleep talking research has grown substantially as the sleep industry has expanded. The global sleep economy, now worth hundreds of billions of dollars, includes numerous products and services related to sleep talking. From specialized bedding to monitoring devices to therapeutic interventions, sleep talking has become a significant market segment within the broader sleep wellness industry. Gene therapy and advanced medical interventions are being explored for severe cases of disruptive sleep talking. While most sleep talking is harmless, some individuals experience such frequent or loud episodes that they significantly impact quality of life for themselves and their families. Researchers are investigating whether genetic factors, underlying sleep talking might be modifiable through advanced medical interventions. The space age has brought new dimensions to sleep talking research, as astronauts' sleep patterns are monitored in the unique environment of space. Microgravity, artificial lighting cycles, and the stress of space travel all potentially influence sleep architecture and nocturnal behaviors. Space-based sleep-talking research may provide insights into how extreme environments affect this fundamental human behavior. Bioethical considerations around sleep-talking research have become increasingly complex as our ability to monitor and analyze unconscious behavior advances. Questions arise about consent for recording unconscious speech, the ownership of sleep-talking data, and the potential for discrimination based on sleep-talking patterns. These ethical challenges reflect broader societal questions about privacy, autonomy, and the appropriate use of intimate biological data. The future of sleep-talking research promises even more sophisticated understanding as neurotechnology advances. Brain-computer interfaces may eventually allow researchers to monitor the neural processes underlying sleep-talking in real time, providing unprecedented insights into the mechanisms of unconscious speech production. These technologies might even allow for real-time modification of sleep-talking patterns, though the ethical implications of such interventions remain complex. Educational institutions are beginning to incorporate sleep-talking research into curricula ranging from psychology to linguistics to computer science. The interdisciplinary nature of sleep-talking research makes it an excellent teaching tool for demonstrating how complex human phenomena require multiple perspectives and methodologies to understand fully. Students are conducting their own sleep-talking research projects, contributing to the growing body of knowledge while learning research methods. The cultural significance of sleep-talking continues to evolve in our interconnected world. Social media has created new forms of sleep-talking, related entertainment, and community building. People share their sleep-talking recordings, create memes about nocturnal utterances, and form online communities around their shared experiences. This cultural evolution reflects the ongoing human need to find connection and meaning in even the most mundane aspects of our experience. And so, the next time your roommate starts discussing interdimensional cheese strategies at 3 in the morning, you can appreciate that they're participating in a phenomenon that has puzzled, entertained, and educated humans for thousands of years. Their nocturnal monologue is part of an unbroken chain of sleep-talking that stretches back to our earliest ancestors, connecting them to cave dwellers and emperors, monks and astronauts, all united by the mysterious human tendency to speak without awareness. The conversation continues, one mumbled word at a time, adding new chapters to the ongoing story of sleep-talking throughout human history, and promising even more discoveries as we continue to explore the fascinating mysteries of the sleeping mind.